we on the program tonight, on this Saturday night's program, we will continue on the lost tribes of Israel as we're going to sum it all up tonight, and hopefully you've got a good understanding of it. Now, I'm going to say some things and do some things tonight that's very repetitious, but this is a difficult thing for people to understand sometimes. We're hitting the high parts of it. As I've told you, if you want to order the 12 messages on CDs that I've got on this, it goes into it in details. I want you to understand the basics of it, and if we give you a whole bunch of scriptures and a whole bunch of Hebrew names and Israelite names and so on, you'll never grasp it. So I'm hitting the high points of it, and tonight I'm going to pretty much sum up all of what we have talked about over, I think, 3 or 4 programs now, and then take us into the book of Hosea, which will be the end of it for now. And keep it going just again tonight, because there's been a real good response to it, and I know that you're interested in it. As we talk about the lost tribes of Israel, this program began with dealing with what has now become a nationalized false doctrine. Now, what my job is as a student of the Bible and as someone who's presenting and teaching the Bible to you is to stand behind and promote sound, clear biblical doctrine. Anytime a false doctrine is spoken, we need to speak against it. For sure, anytime a false doctrine now has gained some form of national attention, then of course we need to deal with it. And so that's what I'm doing. What started this was now this group that's calling themselves the black Israelites or the black Hebrews, and just who are teaching and presenting the fact that they are the chosen people of Israel, and they are what the Bible speaks of Israel. I've already shared with you where the notion came from and the idea came from behind the black Israelite movement, and it is very simply this. They have found themselves, or believe themselves, to be Jews. One of the reasons is that Jewish artifacts was found in Ethiopia. What is the connection between the Jews and Ethiopia? Well, it's a very clear one. Solomon, King Solomon, had relations with the Queen of Sheba. The Queen of Sheba is the Queen of Ethiopia. And therefore, there are legitimate Hebrew Jews, without question. So the Jewish Israelites is not a false teaching because they are saying we are Jews. The false teaching is to associate themselves with what the Bible said about Israel. Immediately a new viewer will say, Israel and the Jews were talking about the same thing. Therein lies the problem. The problem is that the whole world, and almost 99% of the church world, believes that Israel are the Jews. Well, the Jews, in fact, make up only one part of Israel. As we have already seen in our program, the house of faith was established by one man. It was Abraham. Abraham was not called a Jew. He was not called an Israelite. He was not called any of those names. Whenever he left the land of Ur in Babylonian area, when he left that land due to the calling of God, he became what was called the Hebrew. The word Hebrew means the crossover, and what it means in spiritual terms is crossing over from death into life, becoming the children of God. Abraham then had sons. Jacob was one of those sons. I've already shown you the passage of Scripture where God said to Jacob, your name will no longer be Jacob, but it will be Israel. That's where Israel came to be. Jacob's name, by God, was changed to Israel. Jacob then had 12 sons. Those 12 sons became the sons of Jacob, or the sons of Israel, for Jacob's name was now Israel. One of his sons' name was Judah. So that became Judah. They had children, and therefore it became the house of Judah, the tribe of Judah, or the tribe of Israel a tribe of Jacob. I hope you understand. Israel had 12 sons. Jacob had 12 sons. That then became the sons of Israel, the house of Israel, the house of Jacob. They, of course, had sons, and they became the tribes of Israel, the 12 tribes of Israel. The 12 tribes of Israel then was made up of Judah, of Issachar, of Zebulun, of all 12 of them. The only ones that were called Jews of the 12 tribes was the house of Judah. Judah. Jew became a shortened name for Judah. That's where the Jew came from, the house of Judah. The house of Judah makes up only 1/12 of the whole nation of Israel. An example that I've used throughout every program is, all Texans are Americans, but all Americans are not Texans. All Jews are Israelites, but all Israelites are not Jews. So, the idea that Israel is the Jews, and anytime you hear Israel, you're talking about the Jews. That is simply incorrect. It's wrong, and it's clearly wrong biblically. So, when the black Israelites find Jewish artifacts in Ethiopia and proclaim themselves to be Jews, they are correct. When they, however, stand up and proclaim themselves to be the real Jew or the true Jew, you're simply wrong. There is much teaching going on today that says that the Jews in Israel are not really the Jews, that the Jews was scattered abroad, conquered by Babylon, and after Babylonian captivity, and Israel went back into their land, only a few Jews went back. And so, what we have today that is called Jews are not the real Jews. And everybody associating Jews with the whole of Israel says what you have as Israel is not really Israel, because the Jews over there are not really Jews, not even realizing and recognizing that to say Jew is not to say all of Israel. Nonetheless, this is where the problem is. The Jews that are in Palestine now, the Jews that was in there after the Babylonian captivity, some 700 years or so before Jesus came, they say they were no longer the real Jews. But you have a problem. For the whole Bible in the New Testament addresses them as the Jews. The Bible says that whenever Jesus was on the earth, He spoke to the Jews and called them the Jews. He said that He was sent to His own, Jesus being from the tribe of Judah. Jesus was a Jew. And the Bible said Jesus was sent to His own, the Jews, and the Jews received Him not. So, if the Jews in Israel are not real Jews, Jesus didn't know it. He was confused and was deceived. I don't think so. That's nonsense. So, thinking that the Jews makes up all of Israel, well, is where the error comes in. Ethiopian Jews, yes, they exist. Are they the real Jew, true Jew? No, they're real Jews. They're true Jews, but they're not the true Jew as is presented. They are Jews from Solomon and Bathsheba. So during this series, I went on from there to show you scripturally where Israel split and became two different nations. Israel split over taxes, and it became the house of Israel up in the south and the house of Judah down in the north. The house of Israel was made up of 10 tribes. The house of Judah was made up of 2 tribes, Judah and Benjamin. The Bible then tells us that because the 10 tribes, not the Jews, not Judah, but the 10 tribes went into paganism, the Bible said the Assyrians conquered them. That was more than 100 years before the Jews was conquered by Babylon. We see two nations, two different kings, even about to go to war with one another. Two separate kingdoms. The Bible calls one kingdom the house of Judah. It calls the other kingdom the house of Israel. The 10 tribes was conquered by Assyria while Judah remained safe in the land. The 10 tribes, the Bible said, would be scattered throughout the world and that they would lose their identity. That is exactly what happened. Some 100 or so years later, the Jews was then conquered by Babylon. The Jews never lost their identity. Through all of the years of their trials and their trouble, the Jew always knew he was the Jew. And the Jew then regathered and went back into Palestine as we know it today. The 10 tribes of Israel, however, scattered among the world. The Bible said that Israel would number as the stars of the heaven and the sand of the sea, something I addressed in one of the earlier programs but didn't finish it off, so let me do so tonight. This is one of the reasons that the children of Ishmael, the Ishmaelite kingdoms, the Islamic world, believes that they are the ones that should be the heir to all the promises of the Bible. Because Ishmael was the first son of Abraham, but he was not the promised seed. God's word plainly told us that the promised seed to come from Abraham would come from Abraham and Sarah. Sarah had a barren womb. They was pressing 100 years old, no baby. So Sarah sent her husband in to her handmaiden, and he produced a child with a woman named Hagar. The child's name was Ishmael. He became the father of the Ishmaelites, but he did not come from Sarah. He's not the promised seed. The Islamic world, the Ishmaelite kingdoms, says we are the firstborn of Abraham and the promises goes down to the firstborn. Okay, that's wiped out because he's not the seed that God promised. It would come through Sarah. Then they say we number hundreds of millions and the Jews only number about 5 or 6 million. The Bible said that the children that would be blessed would be as the stars of the heaven and the sand of the sea. This is where another mistake is made, and you cannot understand Bible prophecy if you don't understand the difference between the Jew and the Israelites. The Jews number 5 to 6 million. The Ishmaelite kingdoms are right. We're the ones that bears the numbers as the stars of the heaven and the sand of the sea that was promised to multiply as those numbers. Not figuring on the 10 tribes scattered throughout the world. When you take the whole of Israel and put it together, you've got numbers that are as the stars of the heaven and the sand of the sea. But when you make the common mistake that only the Jews are Israelites, you mess the whole Bible up. And it is obviously wrong. So we see the two kingdoms split. They became two different nations, the house of Israel, the house of Judah. We see then the house of Israel is scattered by Assyria before the house of Judah is conquered by Babylon. Where did the house of Israel go? Well, much history, biblical evidence, and history shows us exactly where they went. As I've shown you already, the Bible said that they would go northwest from Israel. They would become an island people, where in Isaiah 49, God would address Israel as, O ye isles, those that's in the islands. The Bible said they would go northwest from Israel. Draw a line northwest of Israel, of Jerusalem, northwest, until you hit an island that fulfilled the promises of God, and it will hit the British Isles. That's where they went. The Bible said that they would possess the gates of their enemy, and they would be a multitude of nations, or a commonwealth of nations. There is only one nation in the history of mankind that has ever been a commonwealth of nations. Only one. Guess where it was? That island northwest of Jerusalem called the British Isles. It was said that the sun never sets on the British Empire. They possessed the gates of their enemy, the strategic points of all of their enemies. The Bible also said that where they would be, there would also be a king, and that king would be of the line of David. So we're looking for an island-dwelling people northwest of Israel that still has a king. For the Bible said, as I've shown you these scriptures, the Bible said that David would never want for a man to sit upon his throne. As long as there was daylight and dark, the covenant would stand, the Bible said. So we're looking for an island-dwelling people that has possessed the gates of their enemies, that has been a commonwealth of nations, that possesses a king even to this day, that can be run back to the lineage of David. Now, I told y'all about a chart that I was going to try to get for you. I've had it in the past, and I have located the chart. I've got them if you want them. Now, you won't be able to see this very well because of the lighting causing a little bit of a problem. But this is a chart, and that's how big it is. And what this chart does is it takes you all the way from King David, all the way 144 people up to Queen Elizabeth. Queen Elizabeth is the 144th from King David. So, we're looking for an island-dwelling people northwest of Israel that possessed the gates of their enemies, that was a power of the world, that possesses a king even to this date that can date back to the lineage of David. And you have only one that fulfilled every one of those, and it is Great Britain. Then we saw Jeremiah. We saw Jeremiah then taken into captivity. We saw in the scriptures that God said in Jeremiah 15 that he would have Jeremiah to be treated well in a time of affliction and by his enemy. That's before he was even captured. Then we see in chapter 39 of Jeremiah, after the Jews was conquered by Babylon, all of a sudden we see a brutal king murdering and killing and butchering. All of a sudden says concerning Jeremiah, let him go, let him do whatever he wants to, treat him well. Why did Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, do that? Because God said in chapter 15, Jeremiah, you're going to be treated well among your enemies in a time of affliction. And so Nebuchadnezzar let him go. We showed you this in the last program. Where did Jeremiah go? Jeremiah went to the governor's house. His name was Gedaliah. As we read through the stories, chapter 39, 40, 41, 42, and 43 of Jeremiah, then you find he went to Gedaliah's house. And you find that the king's daughters were there. The last king of Israel that was noted was Zedekiah. The Babylonians took every one of his sons before his face and killed every one of them. That's those that would inherit the throne. And made Zedekiah see all of his sons get killed. And then the Babylonians gouged out the eyes of Zedekiah the king, and Zedekiah died in the prison in Babylon. So the Babylonians thought that they had wiped out the entire lineage of the king, not realizing that in the Hebrew and in the Jewish faith, that if there was not a man to occupy the throne, then a female could. There is the reason why whenever Jeremiah left Babylon, he went straight to Gedaliah's house, knowing that the daughters of the king was there. The next thing we know is we find in Ireland's history that a prophet, they called him Olam Fala, the seer, the prophet, came to shore with two fair-haired princes, one from the line of Pharez, one from the line of Zara. And the Bible tells us that Jeremiah would bring and plant the throne of Israel there in Ireland. Jeremiah was commissioned with two commissions in Jeremiah 1. He was to tear up, tear down, destroy, pluck up, and then he was to go somewhere else, plant and build what he plucked up. We talked about that in detail. He took the throne of Israel into Ireland, where he's recognized as the prophet, the seer. His statue on the forecourts of Dublin, Ireland, attests to the grave of Jeremiah. From there, that stone of destiny that marked the house of God, the stone that all the kings of England was coronated over, or the kings of Israel was coronated over, now had been moved to Ireland, plucked up, now planted in Ireland. From Ireland it went to Scotland. From Scotland it went to England, to Westminster Abbey, where every king to this day is and will be coronated over the same stone, every child of Israel. So you have the stone of destiny. That's the rock that Jacob laid his head on. The rock that Moses brought out of Egypt with him. The rock that he smote and water came out of it. The rock that Israel's kings was coronated over. The rock that England's kings is coronated. Being birthed by the daughters of the king, Jeremiah got from Gedaliah's house and brought to Ireland. And the king's throne was established in Great Britain. The word British means Brith in the Hebrew, covenant, Ish in the Hebrew, man, covenant people. Then the Bible takes us to the story of Hosea, where Hosea tells us that God commanded Hosea to marry a harlot. The reason for this was he would tell the whole story of his relationship with Israel through Hosea. You marry a harlot. The Bible said that God divorced Israel, not the Jews. God divorced Israel. Israel was then scattered. They went into the British Isles, northwest of Israel. All of the things that I just told you. They were pagans. Nobody knew they was Israelites. They lost track of who they were. And they were pagans. And God said, you're not my people. And so the Lord had this harlot to have 3 children. Had a son called Jezreel. This is Hosea chapter 1. Had a son called Jezreel. The name meant scattered. Then he had another child that was named Lo-ruhamah, which meant no mercy, and another son called Lo-ammi, and his name meant not my people. I will have no mercy on what is not my people, that is scattered. That's what the 3 children's name meant. But then the Bible tells us something strange would happen there. In chapter 1 and chapter 2 of the book of Hosea, God says, the people who were not my people, and I was not their God, in the place that took place, ye shall become, or ye shall be my people, and I shall be your God. That is where the house of Israel accepted the gospel of Jesus Christ. Remember, Jesus said to the Jews, once they had thoroughly rejected, he came to his own received him not. Then Jesus looked at the apostles, at the disciples, and said to them, you're fixing to go on a journey. When you go on a journey, do this, do that, don't do this, and don't do that. When you go on a journey, take this gospel that the Jews have rejected. He said, take this gospel now to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, the nationally designated name. The house of Judah, the house of Israel. Jesus is now saying the Jews have rejected it. And now I'm going to pass it on to the house of Israel. And in the place that they were not called God's people, they were given no mercy. In that place they received the gospel and became the sons of God, and God became their God. That's what Hosea says. From there was a split, there was a breakup that took place. And the tribe of Manasseh broke off, fulfilling the prophecy of Jacob, broke off and became the singularly great nation, the one that Isaiah said would carry the gospel of the light of God's salvation to the entire world, Manasseh, the United States of America. You see, America has fulfilled every prophecy of Israel. Every prophecy of Israel was that they would be very wealthy. They would be very powerful. They would be very rich. They would carry the gospel of God to the entire world. That did not come from Ethiopia. That is not a racist statement. It is a factual statement. Ethiopia has never possessed the gates of their enemy. Ethiopia has never been a world power. Ethiopia didn't take the gospel of Jesus Christ to the entire world. Ethiopia does not have a king today that can be traced back to the lineage of David. The facts are clear and obvious. And there you have it. Now, if you want the teaching in detail, where we're going through all the names and all the places and everything, then you can order the Lost Tribes. I did it a long, long time ago, but you can order the Lost Tribes series. It's $40. If you want the large chart that shows you the royal lineage of King David to go with it, then just add an extra $30 and we'll get it to you. So the price of it all together will be $70 if you want the chart plus the 12 programs. It's 12 teachings on the Lost Tribes of Israel. It's on either 3 or 4 CDs, but it's 12 teachings. If you want the 12 teachings plus the chart, it's $70. If you just want the 12 teachings, then $40. But please let us know if you want the charts plus the teaching. I hope that this has been a blessing to you. Hope it's opened your eyes up. Till the next time, till tomorrow night, as a matter of fact. God keep you and bless you. We love you in the Lord.
I could not have walked down that road. I could not have carried such a heavy load. I would not stand silent as they lied on me. I would have fallen back in Gethsemane. I never would have drank that bitter cup. And if they came for me, I'd never give up. But the man came from Galilee was more of a man than me. I never would have died to set man free. And as for those who drove those nails in me, I never would have prayed, my God, forgive. I would have judged their lives unfit to live.